All right, hello. We're gonna learn our next data display. Let's just get to it. You know, Minch, we gotta catch up. Okay, the next one is called a stem and leaf plot. Okay, so stem and leaf plot. It's literally called this because you have a stem on one side and you add leaves to the end. Okay, so stem and leaf plots are different because stem and leaf plots organize data by place value. Okay, it organizes data by place value. So if I was to go to Fred Meyer and ask people their ages, okay? So if I was to ask people their ages and I collected that, someone who is 15 has a 1 in the tens column and a 5 in the ones column. But someone who is 40 would have a 4 in the tens column and a 0 in the ones column. That's what I mean by place value. You're looking at where the digits are placed, and we'll get used to that more. Step 1 for this is determine your highest place value. So you have to determine is the ones, the tens, the hundreds, the thousands, is that your highest place value? Okay. Step 2, always then order least to greatest. You could have also ordered least to greatest first. I'm going to draw arrows because I probably should have done that first. Okay. Then step 3 is you need to create your stems. Okay. Create stems, and your stems are your highest place value. Step 4 is you need to add your leaves. We'll talk about that. Add leaves. And then step 5 is you need a title. Step 6 is the one that's forgotten the most, and it's make a key. We will talk about what that means. I never ever leave you hanging. This one's a little more confusing, but once you see it, you'll be like, oh, this is simple. So let's pretend I did ask that question. What are people's ages at Fred Meyer? Okay, so let's say I ask them and they say they are 8 and they are 22 and they are 21 and they are 17 and they are 40 and they are 65 and they are 23 and they are 27 and they are 22 and they are 13. Okay, those are the random ages. There's no reason I picked them. I'm just trying to go fast. Okay, so if I was to ask people that, first I'm going to order least to greatest, right? So I have an 8-year-old, I have a 13-year-old, 14, 15, 16, I have a 17-year-old, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, another 22-year-old, a 23-year-old, 24, 25, 26, 27-year-old, then I have a 40, and then I have a 65. Okay, so I have to determine my highest place value. So if I go to my biggest number, I have a tens and a ones. 60 represents 6 tens and 5 represents 5 ones. So my highest place value is 60. So I know that my place value is, I'm going to split apart my numbers by tens and ones. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my stems. So my stems, I'm going to label it stems. I'm going to label this leaves. My lowest stem, okay, the hidden number here in front of that 8 is a 0, because that's a 0, 8. And then I need to go all the way to my highest stem, which is a 6. And I can stop there. Now this is the confusing part. To represent this 8, I have a 0 in the tens column and an 8 in the ones column. That's my leaf. To represent this 13, I have a 1 in the tens column and a 3 in the ones column. It's kind of weird just writing a 3, but the way that they make this, it's to kind of show that that's a 1, 3, a 13. Then I'm going to write a comma because then I have a 1, 7 for my 17. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. This is a little crazy. So again, that 1, 3 represents a 13. That 1, 7 represents a 17. Now I have a 2, 1 represents 21. 2, 2 represents 22. 2, 2 represents a different 22-year-old. comma 23, 23-year-old, 27. If I have nothing in the 30, I don't write a 0 here because then that would make it look like I had a 30-year-old. I go to 4, 0 to represent 40. I put nothing in the 5s because I have another one in the 50, and 65 for 65. Now, my title, I'm going to call this Age in Fred Meyer. And my last step is to make a key. So at the bottom, you always write key, okay? Then you give one example coordinate. I'm going to pick 21-year-olds because that's a fun age. So in my key, I'm going to write 21 to line 1 means 21. Okay, I know this is a more confusing, I'm sorry, I'm checking the time. I know this is a more confusing data display, but all it's doing is taking your numbers and breaking them apart between the tens column and the ones column. So let me refresh. This 08 represents that 8-year-old. This 13 represents a 13-year-old. This 17 represents this 17-year-old. 21 represents the 21-year-old. 22 represents that 22-year-old. 22 represents that 22-year-old. They're two different people. You have to include both because it's two different peoples. Two different people. You wouldn't want to just exclude one. 23, 27, no one in our 30s, one person in our 40s, no one in our 50s, and one person in our 60s. Now, the benefit of this type of graph is that it breaks apart your data and you're not repeating a lot of numbers, so it kind of makes things simplistic. So instead of having to write all these numbers out, you're writing less. Another benefit of this system is it really shows you in order of least to greatest. It shows you if you have like steps in your data. Think if I had no one until maybe an 80-year-old, we think, that's kind of weird. We have all these people who are young and then one 80-year-old. I wonder what they were doing. It just lets you raise some questions. The key helps you to determine that 2 dash line. So that's saying 2 bar line means 21. It's kind of helpful. A limitation of the system, though, is that you have to write every data point, just like a dot plot. I know these are a little complex. If you want to look up more on how to do it, I encourage you to do so. But this is called a stem, the column, and leaves your lower place value.